everyone, welcome back to AJ Living. Today I'm not actually going to be doing any cooking today. I'm actually going to be doing more of a beginner's guide to keto from my own experience. Now please keep in mind, I'm actually not a professional, I'm not a dietitian or a doctor or a nutritionist. This is all from my own experience and everything that I eat. However, saying that, if you do have any concerns, please go see a professional. So like I said, this is just from my own experience. Because I do keto as a vegetarian, it is going to be slightly different than doing keto as a meat eater. The only difference is obviously that I don't eat meat and I get all my protein from protein powder and from eggs pretty much. But everything else is exactly the same. The keto diet has actually become really popular with the rapid fat loss and the fat burning mechanisms that it actually stimulates. Now, the reason why it actually does stimulate fat burning is because what happens to the body is that we're actually trying to use less sugar, carbs, glucose, and tap more into our fat storage, the fat that we have on our bodies. And the best way to do that is to actually cut down on your carbs. Now, how do we do that? Well, we eat less carbs, so we go according to our net carbs. But what we're actually doing to the body is we're actually changing our hormones. And this is where it comes really, really interesting. So what we're doing is, you've all heard of insulin, okay? So insulin is actually the hormone that helps energy, the food that we eat, the energy that we provide our bodies, helps the energy or the food or the nutrients reach to the cells. It's like the insulin is like the doorway to reach into our cells kind of thing. Now what happens when we eat too much sugar or too much high carbs or a high sugar diet is that when we digest it and we spike our insulin. So every time we eat something high in carbs and sugar, we actually spike our insulin. So when that happens, insulin is present in the body and it actually drives all that energy to our cells. Now what can happen is that the cells sometimes can be what I call too full of a good thing, which is the sugar or the carbs or the glucose. And sometimes the cell, there's too much in the cell and the cell will actually stop. It will stop actually allowing that energy to enter into the cell. So what does then, all of a sudden, the body is left with these extra glucose energy. So the hormone insulin has to actually store it somewhere else. And yep, you got it. It actually stores as fat around our bodies. Now, what keto does is a very low carb diet or a low carb. I don't like using the word diet. I like using the word eating regime, protocol, something along those lines. So what you're wanting to do is you're actually wanting to lower your insulin by eating less high carb foods and upping your fats, because we want to tap into fat burning. So insulin is the fat storing hormone. Now you want to reduce the fat storing hormone so your body can actually tap into the fat. It is very similar in the way of fasting. So keto and intermittent fasting actually work really well together, because what's happening is that we're actually, when we fast, we're not eating, but we're actually tapping into fat burning mechanisms. So the body goes from using glucose, which it does prefer, like if it had a choice between glucose and fat, it would always go to glucose. But when you take the glucose out, then you tap into fat burning. And I see glucose and fat burning as fuel. You got the glucose, which isn't the very cleanest fuel, and then you've got the fat that your body has, and that is more sustainable and it just lasts longer. It is the good fuel that you put in your car. So how much fat, protein and carbs are we allowed to have? Well, so we're allowed to have, I know this sounds crazy and it goes against everything that we've ever heard of, but you want to get your main source from fats, or your main calories from fats, okay? So I don't calorie count because there's no point, because fat actually holds the most calories, and you want to get all your majority of what you eat from fat. So with that saying, you want a high fat intake, which is roughly around about 75%. Then you want to have a moderate protein intake, which is roughly about 20%. And then the rest of it, 5%, is your carb intake. Now, what I do with the carbs is you actually are still getting carbs from all your veggies. So I recommend eating as much veggies as you like, because, well, me being a vegetarian, I love my veggies, so I can't help it. But with the protein, what can happen is if you have too much protein, then too much protein can actually stimulate the insulin and then actually cause glucose to be produced into the body again. So you want to have a moderate amount of protein. Now what we're trying to do is we're actually wanting to get our body into ketosis. And what ketosis is that it actually, like I mentioned before, it's changing the body around. So you're going from using glucose to using fat. And that's when ketosis starts happening. And what can happen in the first week or so is that you can go through a keto, what is called a keto flu. It's not necessarily an actual flu. It's just that your body is using up all the leftover high carb, high glucose in the body, and then it's working its way to tapping or using fat as the main source of energy. So what can happen? So for me, for example, I did feel tired. It doesn't last long. I did feel tired, but I have heard that apple cider vinegar can actually help with keto flu. However, my experience with apple cider vinegar and also intermittent fasting is a bit different to how other people have experienced it. So when I went through my keto flu, I was tired. I did have brain fog, but I understood with the process of what was going on with my body. So just make sure that if you're starting keto, do the research and understand that your body is working its way away from carbs and is actually tapping into fat storage, and there is an adjustment process. So the keto flu can last from 3 to 7 days. Now make sure you always keep your fluids up, and just give yourself, be kind to yourself, just be easy with yourself. In that period, I would not recommend doing high rigorous exercises. I would mainly stick to really low impact exercise like walking. That's great when you're going through the first beginning stages of this process. Because what can happen with high impact, your energy is slightly different. It's not as high as what it used to be with the glucose. So it is going through a process. So if you are going to be doing exercise, I would really recommend just doing low impact walking. From ketosis, what we want to do, our main aim is to be fat adapted. Now this is where all the awesome stuff happens, because this is where the body is at the metabolism, the body is like so into burning fat and using fat as a fuel. This is where all the magic happens, where you have so much energy, your brain is actually like switched on, so you've got a lot of brain energy as well, and the brain uses up a lot of energy too. So with the brain, yes, the body prefers, if it had a choice between glucose and fat, and the body would prefer to use glucose, but the brain is actually loves the fat or the ketone bodies. So what actually happens is that the liver actually produces ketone bodies, and this is where we get our fuel from. And this is why the diet is called keto, because of the ketone bodies that the liver produces. So what happens with fat adaptation, this is where the body is actually burning fat effectively. Now this can range, and it depends on every single person. It can range from 4 to 12 weeks. But once this happens, so for example, if you have, say, you decide to go out, because all this needs to work around your own social life and your own behaviors with family and friends. So what can happen is that you may decide it's a birthday, or you just feel like going out for a pizza. If you've been doing keto long enough and you go out for a pizza, or you have an alcoholic beverage or something along those lines, depending on how awesome or how good your body is producing and in that fat adapted stage, it could take at least 1 day to switch back to being in ketosis. Now again, that does depend on every individual person. Me, I haven't really tried that lately because I actually don't have any way of knowing. I haven't bought the Mojo, the blood test, or the strips, because to be honest, I actually don't feel like I need pizza. It's true what they say. When I first started keto, it says that all your cravings kind of go away, and it is absolutely true. I don't feel like I need pizza, chips, pasta. I've got, the alternative edamame bean pasta. I don't feel like I am actually being left out in anything. You've seen how we cook here. You see me cook with sweets and desserts, keto desserts. I have a better relationship with food now than I did all my life. All my life, I have a better relationship with food now, and it is incredible. I don't feel left out. If I want ice cream, I'll just make my own ice cream. I actually have to make more ice cream today as well. If I want a cookie or anything, I can just make my own cookies, and that's what I love about it. It has actually expanded my knowledge on the foods that we can eat and the range that I can eat. And it has helped me to become a better person in the kitchen, because a year ago, I was terrible in the kitchen. Absolutely terrible in the kitchen. Now, I am in the kitchen whipping things up, and it is so much fun. So for me, I don't feel left out at all. If anything, I feel more included. I feel absolutely more included in what I'm eating. So that kind of just went off topic from fat adapting to, but anyway, it's still relevant. So one of the main things that you need to keep in mind, what happened to me, which I only just discovered a few weeks ago. So throughout everything, electrolytes are really important to keep your body going, to keep your muscles, your fluids. Electrolytes are so important, especially when you're on keto, because what happens is that with keto, because you're taking out the carbs, and carbs actually hydrate the body, that's where the water retention comes in. So you're actually taking out a lot of that water from the body, which along with the water goes with the electrolytes and the natural nutrients that are held in your body. So you want to replenish that, you want to replace that by using electrolytes. Now I just use this one. It's a low carb electrolyte powder. It's very low carb. So this is really good, because I have been doing research and I have wondered that with electrolytes, do they all have high in sugar? So that was one thing that I had to look for, was a low carb electrolyte powder. Now, what I discovered last week is that I actually ran out of this stuff, and I thought, no, I'm not going to worry about, buying any more. But I wasn't really drinking a lot of water. And then all of a sudden, I woke up one morning and my muscles were aching. Like, I have never experienced an ache like this before. And I couldn't figure out, I didn't know where it was coming from. And so I just, I went to work, I did my thing, came back, but it was so sore. That night I had to ask Jason to actually rub my legs, and it was only in my legs. And it was just so painful when he was doing it. But I was actually really glad, because I was able to fall asleep. Prior to that, I was struggling to fall asleep. So, and then when I woke up the next morning, I got intuitively that it was because I was not actually drinking any water. I was just not drinking water. I ran out of my electrolytes, and I started doing research, and that's when I realized that when the body is too dehydrated, the muscles can be affected by that. So electrolytes are really, really important. I can't stress enough. Now, if you're new to keto And there is talk about keto and intermittent fasting, and you're new to intermittent fasting. My recommendation would be to just do your research, because if, like me, I've gone from doing the traditional eating 6 small meals a day, then going to 3 meals a day, and then I went to 2 meals a day. But I was having the lemon water in the morning, and also having apple cider vinegar in the morning as well. Now with apple cider vinegar, if you're unsure about the fasting part, I did do a video on intermittent fasting, what I went through, and I'll put that in the link in the description down below. However, saying that, I have gone back to intermittent fasting, but I've learned from what I've done. Okay, so if you're new, please do your research and just make sure that it is right for you, because I had to take a few steps back from when I actually did intermittent fasting, from when I first started, because I jump in too quickly and I want things done, straight away. However, I had to learn that I had to take a step back, and now I'm able to reintroduce intermittent fasting into what I do daily now. And it is great. It is actually really good. If you're a beginner in keto and you haven't gotten to the fat adapted stage, what can happen is that you need to monitor. I can't stress this enough. You need to monitor what you eat. So I use the Keto app, and all I do is I put in my details, my height, my weight, my age, all those things, and the algorithm or the matrix code or whatever you want to call it in the app actually comes up with calories, how much carbs, how much protein, and how much fat I need to eat. I just put everything in there. I don't even worry about the calories anymore. I mainly look at what my net carb is. So I try to balance out my fat and my protein together. But you must please monitor what you're eating, because when you're beginning, even the smallest amount of carbs over from what you've got. So you got 20 net carbs. If you go over that in the beginning, it can actually kick you out of ketosis. So if you're wanting to really get stuck into it, I would highly recommend that you keep within the 20 net carbs. Some people might be 0 net carbs. I don't know how that works. I've never actually tried it before. I just stick to the 20 net carbs. That works for me. That's good for me. But yeah, if you're a beginner, I would please monitor what you're eating and record everything down as well, and probably stick to the 20 net carbs. Until you get to the fat adapted stage, like I mentioned before, you could probably have a cheat meal, go for pizza, go for whatever, and then the next day make sure you mentally back into keto, and bang, you'd be back into ketosis again with no problem. So how can you tell when you're fat adapted? So for me, it was less cravings, less hunger. My sleep had actually improved, whereas before in the beginning, it was a bit sketchy kind of thing. And you can last longer. So what I noticed actually is that when I would eat carbs, say for example, a donut. Okay, so about a year ago, I actually had a donut in the morning on the weekend. During the week, I didn't actually do that. But what I noticed is that within about half an hour to 45 minutes, I felt so tired. I really need to eat something else to keep my energy going. Now I can go the whole day. I'll have a keto coffee with my coconut oil, and I can last the whole day without actually eating anything. So that's the difference. That's the difference between eating glucose as opposed to eating fat, because with glucose, you're constantly eating all the time. With fat, you're eating less and less. And then naturally, you'll just go into intermittent fasting. Will you actually feel deprived? Well, for me, no. I don't feel deprived, like I mentioned before. I feel very included in everything I eat. I love the food I eat. I love veggies, and you don't have to be a vegetarian. You can eat meat, because there's a lot of information out there for keto with meat eaters. I can't really give any information out there for keto with meat eaters because I'm not a meat eater. However, you can be a meat eater, you can be vegetarian, there's even vegan keto out there. I haven't tried vegan keto because I like eggs too much. But there probably are days that I actually do have a vegan meal. Like for example, my smoothie. So for lunch, generally during my day, you know, if I'm hungry, I'll have a protein shake. Now, this protein shake is plant-based. It's a pea protein. Love pea protein. I don't use whey protein because pea protein has all the essential amino acids for the body. And what I put in is an avocado. I put in MCT oil. I put in flax seeds. That's what I put in. What else do I put in? Oh, cinnamon. So pretty much my lunch, my smoothie is actually vegan. So it depends. Sometimes being a vegetarian, you can actually switch back and forth to being a vegan, or I don't even realize that that's what I'm doing. However, with my meals, with my dinners, it's mainly my main protein that I get at dinner time would be from the 2 eggs. And that's what I have. So I'll either have an omelette or a salad with 2 eggs, or Jason would make me cauliflower fried rice, and that would have like scrambled egg through it. So eggs are mainly kept for my dinner time, and smoothie is generally for lunchtime. If you would like to know what I eat in a day and what I buy for as a vegetarian keto, I'll put the links down in the description below as well. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you're always notified whenever we put up videos. And until next time, catch you later.